Today. The end is near. Thank you everybody for coming today. We're looking forward to talking about what's next, the future of the internet. Today's session, we're going to bounce around on a few different topics. What we really try to do is look at some of the more emerging technologies that are interesting, unique, but also realistic in terms of being things that many of our customers and clients can potentially use in the not so distant future. So we've prepared a few examples of some of those technologies in practice. We'll have some demos. We're going to talk about a few other ones, a little bit of PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I know it's probably been a lot of PowerPoint overload today. But most importantly, we do want you all to feel the opportunity to ask us questions. So if we're going through anything, feel free to interrupt. We also have saved a good amount of time at the end for questions. If there's something that we covered that seems of interest and you want to talk about even more, feel free. Or if there's other technologies or trends that you've seen that we did not cover, again, feel free to open those up. If there are no questions, it's going to be a race down to happy hour because they are serving cold beverages down in the cafeteria, so we can go to that too. Quick introduction, I'm Craig Briers with American Eagle. I've been here most recently for about 8 years. I actually interned here in high school many moons ago in the business development side, so working with clients, new and existing, on new solutions for their business.
Hi, Tim Lanius, Director of Digital Strategy. Been here 10 plus years.
And I'm Al Connolly. I'm the Director of the Mobile App Development here at American Eagle. I've been here the most out of all of you, about 11 and a half years.
Perfect. All right. So we'll start off with just a sampling of some of the predictions that we have. So we sat down, we got our crystal ball, and we started asking ourselves some questions. What would be some good predictions to share with the audience? When we started talking about things in terms of predictions, we quickly found out that the Jetsons already beat us to the punch, because if you go back and watch the Jetsons, they've nailed it. Smartwatches, they had it. Wearable tech, they had it. Video chat, drones, you name it. There was like 15 different things actually from the Jetsons that they've accurately predicted. So they kind of stole our thunder. But we'll talk about things that are hopefully beyond what the Jetsons may have predicted. Prediction 1, 5G. Just show of hands in the audience, who's heard the term 5G? All right. Who truly understands what 5G is or what that means in terms of end users and consumers? One. I'm with everybody else. I'm not really sure. That's why this is a prediction. So this is really a best guess. But the best way to think of 5G, it's the next evolution of mobile broadband internet connectivity. Right now, you're probably familiar with 4G connectivity, right? It's what you're used to. It's what your cell phones are primarily using for connectivity to the internet. Good speed, reliable, coverage is decent, always improving. 5G aims to basically come up with a whole new way of providing high-speed, highly reliable internet connectivity, not just to mobile devices, but devices of all types and sizes and nature. What that means for you all, starting with how we traditionally get our internet connection at homes, running cables through houses, that's probably going to go away over time. Internet connection will be primarily wireless because it can be high speed and will not necessitate a direct wired connection. So that unlocks some pretty neat potential, one of which is not having to deal with Comcast installers knocking holes in your walls. Number 2, commercial innovation in the Internet of Things. So who's familiar with Internet of Things, what that refers to? Perfect. Who has smart devices, connected devices in their house? Growing. Perfect. Right now, IoT, or the Internet of Things, is really consumer focused. Smart lights, smart switches, Alexa, Google Home. What we're expecting to see is commercial innovation in that space. Right now, it's kind of been limited because of the applications and also stable, high-speed internet. 5G changes that, and that's what the graphic here is depicting, is different types of smart infrastructure and systems that will be potentially achieved with the unveiling of 5G. So the notion of driving down the street in your car that's smart, you might have a wearable device that notices you're having a heart attack. You can directly call an ambulance, route you to the nearest hospital. I mean, all these different devices and things are going to be talking and connected to each other, and it's all possible with 5G. Last on this topic, because commercial businesses and products will be driving the innovation of Internet of Things, they're going to require a lot of infrastructure and investment in 5G technology. What that means is we'll rapidly advance to the 5G networks, but a lot of the commercial entities are going to bear the cost of that infrastructure. What that translates to, hopefully, is cheap, fast, reliable internet for the end consumers, and a slew of products and devices that are already going to be connected to make our lives easier. Prediction number 2, and this isn't so much a prediction, it's probably more so just restating the reality. Decisions to engage with your business or your organization or your association, depending on your company, will be based upon the technology you bring and use in your customer experience. So what that means is you're going to be judged based on how technologically advanced or modernized your systems and processes and interactions with your different users are. It's going to basically be judging a book by its cover. The cover is how well you're using technology to benefit the customer experience. And here's just some quick ways where you can start trying to use technology in your day-to-day customer experience. Just things that you can do to kind of get ahead of the curve and not fall too far behind. Obviously, video is a big part, and it doesn't have to be high production video. Some of the most popular channels out there on YouTube are companies and businesses who simply pull up a phone and start recording their colleagues talking about a relevant topic. You don't need to spend tens and twenties of thousands of dollars on short video clips. Just put something out that's relevant. Intelligent search, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but search is going to dominate the landscape of how people interact, find, and do business with your organization. So having an intelligent search platform on your website is a great place to start. Social, everyone talks about social. It's kind of a cliche now, but it does not change the fact that you have to have an active social presence. It doesn't mean you have to post random articles or blogs. It's more about finding ways to engage with people or providing them a forum to ask questions. You'll see this kind of a generational shift. People like to hide behind the keyboard. Social media provides a nice outlet for those people to hide behind the keyboard. So being responsive and active on social is an important thing to do. Wrapping up here, online processes, automation, that is going to be key. A paperless environment is basically a necessity, especially for these younger generations. They want something that's going to be fast, convenient, automated, and might not require interaction with a human. It's kind of sad, but it is true. So the question to start asking yourselves are, what are our processes that are manual, that are antiquated, that could really be improved to make sure that they are going to provide a very seamless and fast customer experience, whether or not that requires a human. All right. Tim, I'll let you jump in on some of these too. So another thing we're talking about here is, what about creating experiences that are non-visual or non-traditional? So when we think of attracting new customers, we think of it as in the context of a website. Someone comes to a website or to a landing page, we present them with a nice landing page and content and information. We can control the experience to a degree. What happens when we lose that control and we're simply relying on non-visual or non-traditional experiences? And Tim, I think you can run up a couple of examples of these of different scenarios that are not too off in the distant future.
Absolutely. So with Amazon and the release of Alexa and Apple with Siri, and there's plenty of other voice-activated systems. Google also has their system out. We're starting to see much more of the conversational aspects come into our daily lives. With that, you have different opportunities. Right now, it's kind of basic to an extent. You can start building these out in a deeper level, but checking the weather, checking the news, checking sports scores, all of those are built into a lot of these systems. What's not built into them, and an article that was out in the Wall Street Journal probably 2 months ago, I believe, was about the aspect of how voice-enabled search and querying actually is losing the impact of training children on the aspect of politeness. And it was all about the author all of a sudden realized his 6-year-old daughter was bullying Alexa. And if you think about it, it's very command-driven. And right now, that's how it's built and structured and programmed. But all of a sudden, he realized that she was correcting Alexa. Alexa, no. Alexa, this. Alexa, that. Alexa, tell me the weather now. There's no aspect of please or thank you. That could be programmed in. So that's a interesting article aspect. Very interesting. I've got 3 kids at home. They know how to use my Apple HomePod better than my wife, and they tend to overpower her when she does try to turn it off. But either way, it can still be unplugged. With all of this, though, there's the aspect of business utilization. We have people who are looking for the quick and easy answers. So, for example, register me for an upcoming seminar, our next AE forum, perhaps. How do we start to utilize that information to have the impact of voice search benefit the user. And it has to be a true impact, because either way you still have to develop and program it. Alexa, when does my auto insurance policy expire? We want to make sure that we're utilizing it for activities that they might do. Alexa, pay my bill, if you don't have an auto draft set up for your bank account to pay your bills. It's a different way to interact, and it's definitely where things are starting to head. We have, I should have said Google pay my water bill, sorry. I'm not giving fair exposure to each. I'm an Apple fanboy, so sorry. Google and Alexa. High bookshelf, is that a new system that you?
Well, so I started to put together a list based on who some of the attendees were. And think of like library, for example. If people are going to be checking out books, the reality is there may be smart bookshelves not too far off in the future. So as a new parent of a 2-month-old, I'm fearful of the time when I get that late library notice from the library. So having the ability to say, hey, bookshelf, when my library is due, because it knows what books are on the shelf and when those were actually checked out, is completely realistic. So it's those kind of use cases and examples that seem crazy as we talk about them now. Again, think about the Jetsons. What they said were crazy, and all those things came true. So we're not too far off.
I love the haircut one. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Even trying to schedule a haircut online is not the best of user experiences. I would love to be able to just say, hey, schedule a haircut for next Tuesday, or what's the available right now, right? So there's a lot of immediacy versus future forecast aspects to it. Through all this, though, it's the communication that we have to plan as organizations and implementers. So that non-visual aspect and that non-traditional is, how do you inform someone of this now? Because you have to have Alexa or Google or Apple, Siri, read that back to them. So it's a different way of information being presented than a visual number that would just show. One of my biggest problems when things get read back to me currently today is it'll be like 3.2.15 for $32.15. It's getting better, but it depends on how much you've invested in training the system or the libraries that you use. So overall, there's a lot of great statistics. Over the web search aspect in specific, voice search is going to consume about 50% of all web searches by 2020. That's a year and a half away, 2 years away right now. All right, we're almost at the end of 18. 30% of searches are going to be done without a screen at all. And I think that's just phenomenal to see the shift that's happening and how fast. Look at how fast mobile overtook desktop. Look how fast social messaging apps versus social networks, right? Messaging versus social networks is another aspect of how fast times are changing now with technology. This is all happening with voice as well. We have over 1 billion voice searches per month happening. That's only going to increase. And voice commerce, so conversational commerce aspect, is coming in at 1.8 billion last year. So by 2022, again, not that far off, 40 billion is going to be done through voice. So if you're in e-commerce, if you're in lead gen, if you're in services industry, how do you start to plan ahead for this and build a roadmap so that you're prepared? In association, you have members who are coming in and doing certain activities. Instead of reading white papers anymore, maybe they're going to listen to it through their device in their car on their drive and commute to work. I do that. I do podcasts on my 40-minute commute here, and it's great. And it just auto cycles to the next one, the next one, the next one. And it's perfect for me. And I can just say, hey, Siri, play my next podcast.
So if your jobs as marketers and technology experts and operations wasn't hard enough with having to deal with the website and that experience, now you're going to be presented with a challenge of non-website experiences, things that are kind of out in the open and really just rely on you providing good structured content and data. So on that topic, what are some things that you can start doing now to prepare for this paradigm shift towards non-visual searches? Number one, SEO is still going to be important because the way that a lot of these different systems get the answers and content is through the same practices as a search engine crawl. So auditing your site for SEO best practices is priority number one. We're thinking about people asking questions, quick questions. It's very much just like FAQs and support questions. Making sure that your content on the website that is targeted towards those types of users is up to date and properly formed is going to be also important. What you don't want to have is the Googles, the Alexas, the Siris of the world going out and crawling your site and providing answers to people's questions that are inaccurate or completely false. So hygiene is going to be important. What we've been trained as marketers to do is think in the sense of keywords when we describe certain pages or landing pages or search terms. What we need to start thinking about is actual human long-tail conversational phrases, things that people might actually say or command, in Tim's example, their smart device to do that potentially would lead them to the content on your website. Schema.org is a standardization of how we describe certain pieces of content on websites in a digital form. So a great example of that is in e-commerce. Product title is a product title across all websites. It's a structured way of defining your data so that all applications, Facebook, social, smart devices, can interpret what's on your website in a consistent manner. It's kind of like standardizing the language that you're using on the page itself. So schema.org is very important to that. And it also applies to contact information, your business information, any people or personnel that you list on that site. I don't know if you noticed in Google when you're doing searches, you kind of see some more advanced searches with logos and stats. That's all based on schema.org data that people are using within their website.
And this structure and everything else comes into play for what Nick talked about earlier in a previous session about accessibility. And when we start to build the structure for accessibility, we're also building structure of data that can be used in multiple areas. There's things specific for accessibility, there's things specific for SEO, there's things specific for voice search. But overall, when you start thinking in that mindset of structured data and what is being presented, it starts to complement the other efforts that you're doing instead of each one of them being in their own silos.
Yeah. Last but not least, I think the biggest takeaway here is just have a plan, but do not get distracted by the industry buzz. Some of the ideas here we're talking are pretty lofty. They're not realistic or applicable to people in this room, but there are some good nuggets, hopefully, that you can take back and say, we should start thinking about this. So it's never too early to start with that plan, but just make sure it's realistic, but focus on the things that people can actually benefit from, not kind of the novelty factors where it'd be really cool if we did this. Mm-hmm. All right, Tim.
So what I want to do is just kind of walk you through a day from the future from a mindset. Full disclosure here, I reworded this and changed the pictures. I fully saw this in another conference, so this is not my own original masterpiece. This is a repurposed one, just like we got the mouse from Steve Jobs. So basically kind of talking through a day, morning really. I wake up and I look and request an update from the phone for news and messages since I last interacted with my phone, which is probably when I fell asleep. And I see that my boss has sent me an urgent email about some anomaly, I should use easier words there, a discrepancy in revenue results. So I take that and I issue a voice command to check which SKUs are showing lower revenue compared to forecast and ask that production levels be checked for those SKUs because I remembered, there's a production outage a few weeks back. And then I head out for my morning workout, which I obviously do every single day here. So, the analysis crunches and the scenes behind. I get into my car and I have my commute in, I'm listening to my podcast, and my phone notifies me through my car, because I'm hands-free, of course, that the analysis is complete and it has a synopsis and it's been emailed for review. I can also ask it to kind of just read it aloud so that as I'm finishing my commute, I can understand the summary that it has crunched through. And then I'm in the hallway, I see my boss, I don't even have to wait or schedule a meeting. I give her a quick update on the issue. It's the second time the factory has been down in 2 months, and a call's already been scheduled with the plant manager to review. It's not even 8 a.m. yet. So that's probably not too far in the future, honestly, depending on your systems, depending on what you set up. We can do a lot of things now with having emails read to us. We can do a lot with having machine learning and AI give insights into reports and issues, connecting into CRMs to schedule meetings. If you haven't heard of the meeting scheduler, Amy, you can have an entire bot run your email interactions for scheduling meetings. And it's a very interesting aspect where you don't have to worry about the back and forth. It sees your calendar, it sees your open spots, you can block out certain ones, and it will email back and forth with someone to engage with them and understand that that's your next availability for scheduling the meeting. It'll put it on the calendar and make sure that you're all set and ready to go.
If there's nothing you use from this presentation, at least take that one, because that solves a lot of challenges that we experience today. So automatic scheduling without back and forth is a big win.
Absolutely. So that's just kind of a vision of what the future can be. Are we there yet? Are we going to immediately be able to apply this in the next year or two? Probably not fully at that level, but there's aspects that we can start heading towards to achieve that. To me, it's exciting to have a report be asked for and have it delivered to my inbox without me having to go in and touch Excel, which is just so much fun every single day. And build that out, email it, schedule a call, go through the back and forth of it. It's a time saver. And what does everyone want nowadays? They want efficiency. That's what this type of technology can bring.
All right. So we're going to shift to some more demo interactive examples. So we talked about some pretty lofty blue sky type applications. What we're going to have Al do now is show more technologies in practice and already out in the marketplace, just through a few different examples we put together, and focusing on NFC and smart signs to start with.
Great, thanks guys. So quick show of hands, who here has used their mobile device to pay for something at a store, like through Apple Pay or Android Pay? Nice, impressive. How many of you at least know about it if you haven't used it yet? All right, awesome.
It's on the list.
So what we're going to show you today, the same technology that enables that interaction with your smartphone and a cash register is what we can now put into signs. So let's say you do finally make it out of the house, right, if you're homebody like they were talking about earlier. And so let's say you came into our office here maybe like last week and you didn't know about the conference that we're having here today, and you saw this sign here, and usually there'd be like a URL, go to this URL to register for our form. But instead you see these two. So you have a QR code, which you've probably seen out in the wild for a few years now. But some of the new technologies, you can switch over to our, some of the new technologies that are getting put into smartphones these days is now allowing us to interact with just by touching a sign or touching an asset like a cash register. So instead of opening up my browser, typing in a URL, which I might mistype, I can just come up to the sign, and if we look at the phone on the right here, if I just tap the sign, it opens the web browser directly to the URL that I set to it, and I can hit that button to register now. Again, all I had to do was pull out my phone and tap the sign. In cases where the phone may not have the NFC, you could just like you might do today, pull out your camera and scan the QR code instead. So the other thing that is starting to become more prevalent these days is it's not just for your URLs either. So let's say I wanted to let people know that there's free Wi-Fi. So again, instead of having the user unlock their phone, find their settings, go to the Wi-Fi, get the list of all the Wi-Fi networks in the area, find the one that I'm looking for, type in the password. We can just put all that information on a sign. So here I'm going to tap it again. So you can see it's asking me to connect to the Wi-Fi here. So much easier than having to fiddle with your phone to get to the Wi-Fi settings. So it's not just Wi-Fi. You can do SMS. You can do send emails, send a GPS location. Pretty much any basic smartphone function that is available on the phone, we can put into an NFC tag or a QR code. And just so you can see what these tags look like, on the back there you can kind of see this little silver looking thing there. So that's a smaller one. On the back of our sign here, there's a little bit of a bigger one. Now these are cases for when there is no app involved. Now if you have an app and you wanted to do some of this, we do have some use cases for that. So on the left side here, I've switched over to my iPhone here. So we have a few mobile ticketing apps out in the wild, and we can start to use some of the same technology that will integrate into our mobile apps. So the demo here that I'm going to show is for riding a bus. So let's say I'm going to buy my bus ticket through my phone, through our app here. I'm going to buy my ticket. Of course, I've got my payment information already saved, so I don't need to type in my credit card. I'm going to go ahead and complete my order. So I purchased a ticket. You saw how fast that was. And now I'm going to go to use my ticket. So I've purchased a ticket. I haven't activated it yet. This would be like if I'm standing at the bus stop. I didn't have to go to a ticket booth or anything. I could just do everything through my phone. Now I'm about to board the bus, so I need to go use my ticket. Can I get one, guys? So these signs could be mounted inside of a bus
I'm the bus driver.
by the bus driver, yeah. Tattooed on the side of it, no. So you'll see, so I'm gonna go use my ticket. It's telling me that it's ready to scan. I go to tap the sign. And now it's gone and it's activated my ticket. And now it's showing me my live ticket. And I would just show this ticket to the bus driver. The bus driver could see their face, and that's how they know that's an active and valid ticket.
And that ticket validation, I think, is an important thing to call out here because there's so many different ways that you need to show activeness on the different ticketing implications or other areas for the whole aspect of counterfeit or fake or anything like that. So that it's not just someone who can take a picture of someone else's ticket and use it. It's that real live feedback that is an important use of the app and the technology in the phone.
And a lot of these things that Al's talking about too can be applied in many other examples. At the end of the day, we're talking about a small little tag that can go on a object, whether it's a sign, whether it's a piece of marketing material or printed material that you shipped out in a box to a customer. And when they scan it or they put their device next to it, it prompts an action. That action can be one of many different things, like Al had mentioned: send an SMS message, send an email, share a GPS location, trigger them to go to a website. So you kind of think about how can we use that technology in the customer experience. Well, if we're in e-commerce, automated returns. If you don't like something, bump the return slip. It automatically sends me to a site, generates a return label, and schedules a UPS pickup to get that different device. So those are the kind of things that you can do with technology like this at your fingertips. Minimize. Yep. Cool.
So as you can see, it's basically just a printed asset. Okay, you can have these QR codes made pretty easily. These tags are relatively cheap as well, so you can do multiple things with them. You can use it for marketing signage, any printed materials. So if you have like a postcard that you would send out and you want to kind of do some of the same stuff, you can do that as part of a snail mailing campaign. Point of purchase displays. You could even have it so that you can tap a sign to add a product to your cart if you have a e-commerce site. Other points of interest things. So like if you're a museum or like a park district or something, and someone is standing at an exhibit, they can just tap or scan the QR code while they're standing at that exhibit and get more information about that point of interest. App enhancement as well. So you just saw the use case where we're activating a ticket, but we can do lots of other things other than that. And then also just transferring important information securely. So payments, obviously with Apple Pay and Android Pay. The tickets, any transactional data. Even like business cards. You can tap a business card and get the person's contact info directly in their phone without having to key it into your contacts. And then these URLs that the NFC tag and the QR codes can be set up so that they can be tracked. So when somebody hits your URL, it'll basically just track that. It'll increment the counter. It may even get some information about the user, so what type of device they were on. If they were logged into your site, maybe they can get what their account information was. And then so you'll have some of that analytic data that you can then analyze, and then it'll just forward them onto the URL that you intended them to get to. So the technology behind the smart signs is the NFC, so that tag that we showed you earlier. Now, most devices these days will have this in there. Even like the new iPhones that came out, you'll be able to just tap these tags from your home screen just by unlocking your phone, and it'll bring you to the URL. This is brand new as of a month or two ago, or whenever Apple just came out with their new phones. They did have that technology in some older phones, but you had to have an app in order to use it. So now with the new versions of the phones, they're kind of removing that requirement to actually have an app, which is really nice, which is why we think this is going to become much more prevalent now. And of course, Android's had it for a few years, but it just hasn't been as prevalent through Android. As I said earlier, it can be just about anything. So it can just be an email address. if you want to, you can even trigger the mail app to come up on the phone as well. And so you can just start composing your message to the person that you want to send it to. Same thing with the SMS. You can just trigger your SMS app to with the phone number that you need to text and start composing the message. Chatbots.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the question is if we use the phone to program the NFCs. Yes, on Androids, there is an app that you can download that will let you encode the NFC tags. You just got to be careful about what kind of tag you're coding, because sometimes the iPhones won't be able to read it. So just got to.
We have about 5 minutes or so left. Never want to interrupt happy hour. So chatbots, I'm a big fan of chatbots. Again, as Craig mentioned earlier, younger generations are wanting to not talk to people. They just want to interact through their keyboard. So overall, chatbot is basically a service. It's rules. Chatbots, even automated ones, even artificial intelligence, for the most part, are still programmed and dependent on human input. So it's not that we can just say, put the system in place and it can learn to an extent. There's a lot of stuff that you need to start with and make sure it handles what you need it to handle. Overall, the way that, in this quote from Josh really highlights it from Greylock, is it's basically, think of the phone tree that you have today, most likely. Chatbots is similar, but it's just text-based. So instead of someone having to punch a number, they're typing in their question, they're getting a response from more of that tree experience overall. Two types of chatbots. First one is scripted, all rule-based for the behavior. The second is intelligent, and that's where we have the artificial intelligence, the learning aspects come into play, where certain people will start to correct certain things if the chatbot is unsure of what they asked for. It can start to learn over time. It can learn intents. It can learn entities, and that gets really deep into everything. But an intent is like book an appointment in the example below on the left. So, hi, can I schedule an appointment? The book appointment's the intent of the message. The entity or person is Dr. Brook. And then they have another entity of date, which is being interpreted through next week. So it's interpreting all of that as the chatbot is analyzing the entry from the person. It goes through, it analyzes everything, it generates it, and then it spits out a response. Chatbots are not just for websites. Chatbots are being used heavily in Facebook Messenger, in Skype. So messaging apps, and I'll jump back to that slide, but messaging apps have surpassed social networks as of the end of 2014. So going back several years, 4 years. Social networking is not where people are engaging from this perspective. It's the messaging apps. So that's where the chatbots are really in play, is at that level. So how do people feel about shopping through chatbots? Overall, a lot of people aren't familiar with them. Has anyone here shopped through a chatbot? Do you know that you shop through a chatbot at all? So most people are open to trying it. Some aren't. It's still becoming popular overall. And if I don't click too far. So there's a lot of different examples. And the reason I brought these examples up is there's some different aspects. So Sephora is doing a chatbot to help understand. You can set a profile into it and actually have it start to recommend certain products. I can't talk to that much. I don't wear Sephora. Nordstrom, though, I have experienced some stuff with chatbots for shopping, and it is intriguing where I can type in, show me all your black dress shoes. And it shows me a list, and I can say, filter it down to Oxford. And I can start to interact with the chatbot and have it help find something for me. So that's the shopping aspects. 1-800-Flowers is a great example as well. So select a bouquet from below. It gives you a list of products. You pick one, and it goes through all the things you'd normally fill out in a form. So who's the recipient? What do you want the note to say? You can push all that through a chatbot interface. Just a different way that people are starting to interact. On the e-commerce side, it's called conversational commerce, where it's a conversation in order to get to the transaction. And then lastly, kind of the planning aspects, the trip ticketing. Amtrak is the bottom left example. So Julie, the Amtrak virtual travel assistant. And then in the kind of dark area with the hands, that's Maya. That is a job hiring chatbot. So it actually will walk people through the job hiring, the application process, and say you're applying for this role. Do you have experience with certain things? So you can actually have it start to interact with some of the base level interview questions that your HR team might be looking at interacting with on a phone call. So instead of worrying about having to schedule a call and make time work on both calendars, you have the opportunity to let the chatbot start to collect the initial information, and then it can hand off to a live person. And a lot of chatbots will have an out where you can actually say, I want to talk to someone, real person, and it will actually hand off all the information collected to that agent, and now they're that much more informed instead of going through the process again. So a few examples from there. I think we had a repeat of a slide. And really with that, I want to just open up to questions, comments. Mm-hmm. The leader on the intelligence side of chatbots.
So,
Al, you can give your answer first.
so are you talking about the leader in respect of who has the most comprehensive chatbot offering, or the solutions behind the scenes that have the most data? Technology. There's a few out there. I don't think anyone's truly emerged as a leader per se. Progress has a good chatbot solution.
Native Chat.
Native Chat is the name of that one. Tim, what are some of the other ones you've come across?
IBM Watson, that's a huge one, the Watson Assistant. I would say that's the most mature one in the market. Azure has a whole chatbot experience and engine that you can start building out through. I have not looked into any AWS offerings. I'm assuming that there's one there as well. I would say the ones that I hear the most is the IBM, and then Azure, just with the Microsoft security aspect of what they're doing. There are other third-party chatbot solutions, though, where it's less that you're building and training. Those are more the training, deep intelligence. You can really build a lot. Then there's the flip side where it's more of a service, a SaaS offering, where someone's built a chatbot. There's one that I've been looking at with one of the colleges we work with, where it's a university-specific chatbot. So now you're starting to see these niche players come up. And so it all depends on what you're looking to be able to do. But as far as full control, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. I think there's a question.
The smart sign. So the example you gave is it opens up a web page. So we can send information from the sign and also send or include information from the phone. For example, I'm thinking of at a trade show, sign up there, sign me up for your drawing, put it on my phone. It doesn't just take me to the sign up form, it fills it out based on the information.
No, so the tags in the back here, they're passive, right? So that means that there's no real battery in there. So there's nothing really in there that's going to kind of communicate to the user's phone that is specific to that person's phone, other than, hey, here's a URL I want you to open. Now, like I said earlier, if you have an app and they're logged in with the app, like let's say like Cvent had one, or you have one through your association or whatever, then definitely we can pass that information along. Now we can also pass along basic information about the device that is accessing the web page. So it's basically whatever a web page can give you is what these tags can give you. Yeah.
We actually used QR code last year at the trade show, where we were demonstrating machine communication, and you just put your phone up to the QR code and it allows you to see demonstration of what the activities are.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually used that last year at the trade show.
Yeah, and that's a great example of where QR codes or the tags are starting to be more that reference material. I do a lot of trade shows. I don't like taking all the paper material home. If I have an NFC or a QR that I can just scan, I can get a digital copy. I can just just give my email and off it goes. That much the better for me. So a lot of different applications for it. One we didn't really talk about today that's big in the marketplace, I would say, but it's very immature right now, would be the artificial reality, the AR, where you're actually on your phone looking at things. I was just at a conference talking about this in a workshop, and we were talking about how that can be utilized in the B2B space very well. When you have someone, a technician who's out in the field and needs to understand specific parts or order specific parts, that device can be used for that as well. So future, I see us interacting more with our phones in our daily life than we do today. We already interact with them a ton. So, and now with all the tracking, I can see that I've picked up my phone 52 times in the past 3 hours. But overall, it's an exciting time, I feel. I'm excited to see what my kids are going to be able to do versus what I did. But we appreciate everyone's time today, for the forum, for attending. There is a happy hour. I'm supposed to probably ask to have surveys done as well. And happy hour is downstairs. I don't know if you have additional instructions.